Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. This is Who Did You Boycott Today? I don't have time to listen to my battle music because I need to get back to my work. But how you doing, folks? I just want to say hello to you real quick and say a few words. I see the good folks are in the Twitterland hallways talking about what they're gonna identify as. Like I said last night, if you have brown or dark brown skin, you don't have a birthright right now. You don't have an identity. You don't have a ethnicity. Because if you are identifying as Black American, African American, you belong to a Black racial group of Africa. You belong to a Black racial group of Africa. And no baby can be born to a Black racial group. No human being can be born to a Black racial group. That's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as that. That's just a definition that the OMB or America or Congress or the Senate made up. They made it up. And y'all finally getting the bad news because back in 2022, these folks who are in the Twitterland's hallways right now, they abandoned Negro. They abandoned it. They told the OMB they wanted to abandon the term Negro. And that's the only one that have any position in America because it came first. See what happens when you be ungrateful? You see what happens when you be ungrateful? Because 200 Negro has 246 years under it. 246 years of recorded Negro slavery. Where is that documentation for Black American, African American? Because Black American and African American don't have 246 years under it of recorded history. I don't think you're gonna find it. You ain't gonna pull it out the sky. That's what you get from being ungrateful. Now your existence is hanging in the balance, depending on what Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the OMB decide. It's hanging in the balance because this is not rocket science. You can't be intelligent and common sense and believe you have a ethnicity or a birthright when Barack Obama can claim the same birthright and ethnicity. You cannot pretend that you are intelligent and common sense when Kamala Harris can claim the same birthright and ethnicity. You cannot be intelligent and common sense when somebody coming from Jamaica can claim the same birthright and ethnicity. You cannot be intelligent and common sense and claim you have a birthright when someone coming from Ethiopian can claim the same birthright and ethnicity. You folks cannot be that dumb and slow, but you were ungrateful. You just wanted to be Black American so desperately. You wanted to be Black American so desperately. Now you have no birthright whatsoever. I don't care how much attachment you have to the term Black American, it's never going to be an ethnicity. It don't have a national origin. It does not have a national origin or a nation. It's not going to ever be recognized as an ethnicity. And trying to steal the recorded history of Negro is not going to save it either. If you attempt to put the description and how America recorded Negro history in America under Black American, the only thing you will accomplish is erasing 246 years. You will erase it and replace it with the term Black American. That means a Black racial group. So 246 years get washed down the drain with a stroke of a pen. All those precious patents that you folks like to brag about, it gets washed down the drain too. All the books get rewritten. Google search is changing it as we speak. Chat GPT is changing it as we speak. And the Germans and the Irish and the Asians and the Latinos, they are fighting over each other to claim that first 246 years. While you folks don't have an identity. They busy fighting over who's going to get a share of that 246 years. That's what they're doing. While you folks are on Twitter, twiddling your fingers, the Germans and the Irish and the Asians and the Latinos are fighting over who's going to get what part of that 246 years. Because they all want that 246 years. So you folks better pray to God that Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the OMB don't remove Negro. You better pray to God that don't happen. I mean, you need to start praying right now, 24 hours a day, that America don't remove Negro, because that's the only thing that gave us any position on this landmass. It came first. It came first, so you can't replace it. You cannot replace it. It came first. So you best pray to God that Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the OMB and America and the Congress and the Senate and the whole world don't remove Negro, because that's the centerpiece of your justice claim. That's the whole shooting shaboom of your justice claim. It's the centerpiece. It's your strongest evidence of your justice claim. Your precious, precious, precious justice claim is hanging in the balance. All hinges on that term Negro, because America did not record slavery as black American slavery. They did not do that. They did not one day record slavery as black American slavery. They did not one day record slavery as African American slavery. They did not one day record slavery as freeman slavery. They did not one day record slavery as ADOS. They did not one day record slavery as FBA. No, they recorded it as Negro slavery. Go to Google, shimmy on over to Google and do a search. Say, Google, how was slavery? Was slavery recorded in America as Negro slavery? And when I did the search result, if they haven't changed it, but I already screenshotted it. I already screenshotted it a week ago. So if Google has already changed it since I did my search about a week ago, I already screenshotted it. I did. I took my little screenshot because I know Donald Trump, before he took office, he told you to your face that he don't want anyone growing up to hate America. Did you forget? Did you not hear that? I mean, he spoke to the camera. He says, I don't want anyone growing up to hate America. So Donald Trump don't want Negro slavery taught in public schools, and probably not colleges either. So you folks have lost 246 years. You have practically lost 246 years of Negro ancestor history. You lost it because you cared more about that word called Black American. It meant more to you than that 246 years. So whose fault is it? Who can you blame? Because you had an opportunity to tell the OMB, for 75 days. For a whole 75 days, and every day that you have woke up, you have had a chance to shove Negro down America's throat in honor of those Negro ancestors who made the greatest sacrifice, and you chose not to do it. You could have plastered it on your social media platform. You could have put it on your profile. You could have put it in print, and you chose not to do it. So, whose fault is that? America didn't have a gun to your head and told you you could not put it in print. America did not have a gun to your head to tell you not to put it on your profile. You chose to abandon the term Negro. Now, those folks who don't know about this conversation, they can't be blamed. But for all of you who have been a part of this conversation for the past 3 years, you have no excuse. You have no excuse. You ran around and told the whole world, oh, all of these terms mean the same thing. They all mean the same thing. They all mean the same thing. No, they don't. And you know they don't. But you told that lie because you wanted to push the narrative that Black American was the term to go with. But did you forget? Did all you folks forget that 246 years that was recorded under Negro? Did you forget it? And then the next 100 years that America kept putting it on birth certificates, marriage license, and death certificates. So that's about 350 years. That's about 350 years when you total it all together. You folks forgot about that. Y'all forgot about that. You care more about your black culture and your black pride and your black power than you did about all of those Negroes who got hung for 246 years under the term Negro. They got hung every single day under the term Negro. They got lynched for 246 years under the term Negro. They got burnt alive for 246 years under the term Negro. So you folks are going to have to eat your words. You're going to have to eat your words. You're going to eat them. Every single day you get up, you're going to eat it because you had an opportunity to shove it down America's throat in honor of your ancestors and you turned your back on it. You had an opportunity when you called in for 3 days. You had 75 days to submit your statement and tell the OMB they had no right to remove Negro, and you didn't do that. That's your fault. That's each one of you individual person's fault who did it. And your name has already been recorded in the book. And when that day of judgment comes, you're going to answer for it. As sure as what your name is on your birth certificate, God is going to make sure you answer for that because it's already recorded. It's already recorded, and you cannot unrecord it. It's recorded. And now some of you sorry human beings got the nerve to try to get up in the last 6 months, and every time you want to paint someone in a negative light, you call them a Negro. If you're talking about a sellout, they became a Negro in the past 6 months. If you're calling a person a coon, they became a Negro in the past 6 months. When most of you had never said the word Negro out your mouth 6 months ago, let alone put it on your profile or put it on your timeline. And now all of a sudden it's stuck to your tongue. When I've been here, I've been on Twitter since November of 2022. And I was on Clubhouse for 10 months. So I have interacted with most of you for 3 years now, for 3 whole years. For 3 whole years, I have been interacting with you. I ran into you on Clubhouse, and then I ran into you over here on Twitter. So you ain't gonna lie to me, cause I can recognize most of your voices. That's how familiar I am with you. I can downright recognize your voice. So the day to answer for your ungratefulness is slowly arriving. You folks are gonna finally have to answer for your ungratefulness because I don't see. I could be wrong. I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong. I can be wrong, and I pray to God. I pray to God every second of the day that Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the OMB and the Congress and the Senate do not remove Negro. I pray they don't accept those new acronyms: Black American Negro Descendant, Black American Negro Freeman. All of us went through elementary. When the teacher told you to write 2 sentences and use a different word in each of the sentences, the teacher said, I want you to write 2 sentences and use one word in the first sentence and then replace that word in the first sentence with a different word. Well, that is what you are doing with the acronym Black American Negro Descendant. You are replacing 246 years of Negro slavery that was recorded under Negro. I think all of us are intelligent enough to understand that. So I wanted to make sure I explained it elementary so no one can be confused because all of us passed elementary. Each one of us passed elementary, and I think most of us can remember when the teacher told us to write 2 different sentences and use 2 different words. So you can't pretend like you don't know that. That's exactly what you've been doing. That's the sole reason why America went to the classification Black American, because they knew when MLK said, I'm coming for the check. America, I'm coming for the check in around 1965. I'm coming for the check, America. That's when America decided that Negro had to disappear. And that's when they changed the classification to Black American in 1966. Go to Google and look it up. You ain't got to take my word for it. You can go do the search over there on Google. It take about 5 minutes. Just when MLK said he was coming for the check, America replaced the term Negro on forms and applications. On forms and applications. And I think some of you folks said they put it on your birth certificate. I don't know. My birth certificate says Negro in 1962. My little birth certificate says Negro. I didn't get reclassified to Black American because my paperwork and my mother's paperwork and my grandfather's paperwork and my great grandfather's paperwork says Negro. It says Negro. So I got my paperwork. I have it downloaded. I didn't get reclassified because my paperwork did not change. No one collected my paperwork and erased the term Negro off of it. So America's got a problem. They have to go around and collect all of those birth certificates that say Negro. Don't you think they're going to have to do that? They're going to have to run around and collect all of those marriage licenses that say Negro. They're going to have to run around and collect all of those death certificates that say Negro. What you think they're gonna? How they gonna do that? I don't quite understand how they plan to do that. I don't understand how they plan to collect all of that documentation that says Negro. Now they may control the books, they may control Google, they may control Chat GPT, they may control what's locked behind the archive, but they don't control each individual person who have the documentation. They don't control that. No, no. I think you folks had the ability to say America reclassified me to black American, but my mother or my father paperwork said Negro. My grandfather or my grandmother paperwork said Negro. My great grandfather or my great grandmother paperwork said Negro. And since Negro came first, then I'm a Negro because that's biology. That's simple biology. And yes, you folks run around with the narrative that, oh, the white man came up with the term Negro. The white man came up with the term Negro. The white man came up with the term Negro. But that may be right. But those Negro ancestors, they put 246 years into the term Negro. They put 246 years into the term Negro. 246 years of hangings and lynchings and burnings and murder in sacrifice and achievement went into the term Negro. That's why all you folks running around today thinking you deserve reparation. Isn't that right? That's why you think you deserve reparations because of those Negroes who went through that for 246 years. Isn't that what you're basing your claim on? Am I confused? Somebody correct me. Someone send me a DM. But from my understanding, you are basing your justice claim on that 246 years. Because I know you're not basing it on Jim Crow, sharecropping, black coal, prisoner pipeline, racism, discrimination, redlining, because you don't have a leg to stand on. You don't have a leg to stand on. And this brain dead narrative that you folks are running around here talking about with the Supreme Court. Oh, you cannot base anything on race. Oh, you just cannot base anything on race. Everything in America was built off of racism from 1619 up until the Supreme Court did a switcheroo with this decision that came down in 2023 or 2024. Are you serious? Are you really serious that you swallowed that? Yes, they're going to say that because they have to protect the evil that they done. Why would they not say that? Of course they're gonna say that. Oh, of course America gonna say nothing can be based on race when the whole environment was based on the color of your skin. Are you serious? But once again, you folks are in rare form. You didn't have the backbone to tell and reject that decision by the Supreme Court. Nothing is done in America except by racism, by race and racism and discrimination. Every little thing from the very moment that America made another human being a slave, it became a sick environment. It was based on race. And every day after that, everything was based on race. You don't have a justice claim without race. The damage, the harm was done solely, primarily based on your skin color. And everybody know that. Everybody who have a brain in their head know that fact. But you folks took the decision by the Supreme Court and ran around repeating it like you were proud of it. You folks are too intelligent and common sense to have done that. It was downright embarrassing. I must tell you, it was downright embarrassing for me to be listening to persons that I have listened to for 1 year, 2 years, and I always had evaluated they are intelligent person. They are common sense person. But to hear you folks run around for well over a year repeating the Supreme Court decision that nothing can be based on race. Well, America more than likely will plan to enforce that. They don't enforce anything else that that's in favor that favors that's fair to the Negro. So they'll probably keep their track record, but that doesn't give you any reason to not to reject it. Just show some backbone. I mean, you may lose the battle, but at least you would have shown the backbone to tell them, I reject your decision. But you didn't even do that. You just took it and swallowed it and ran around and repeated it. That's what you did. The same thing you do about anything else that America do. You just take it and get up the next day and keep on trucking and open a Twitter space or a Facebook or a YouTube or a Clubhouse or a Instagram or a TikTok and talk and complain and cry. So America has long since evaluated that you're not going to do anything to dish out any real consequences. So they continue to do as they please. They're going to continue to gun you down in the street like an animal. They're going to continue to lock you up like an animal. They're going to continue to shut you out of jobs. They're going to continue to reject any loans. They're going to starve you out. But now Donald Trump done ratcheted it up. Donald Trump is ratcheting it up to now you have the threat of being deported if you are repeat offender. You have the threat of being deported if you turn out to be a repeat offender. Now you have the threat of the death penalty if you are found guilty of a crime of drugs. All of that's being done to genocide the Negro. America don't care about these other brown and dark brown skinned persons. America don't care one bit about them because they don't care about them. Unfortunately, a lot of them are going to suffer collateral damage. They are going to end up suffering collateral damage. That's just reality. Uh, like I told folks over a year ago, you should have booked that plane ticket. I talked about it on my broadcast over a year ago because I could see the writing on the wall. I ain't the smartest person, but I certainly saw the writing on the wall before Donald Trump took office, before the election happened, that this was coming. You can go back and find my broadcast. It's somewhere out there. Most of my broadcasts are on YouTube. I've got them on other platforms too, but I store most of my videos on YouTube until I decide which platform I'm gonna upload it to. So I think it's over there on YouTube somewhere. It's been so long ago. I can't tell you for sure what the title was, but did my best to warn you folks. But you folks just like to run around and call who did you boycott crazy. Y'all don't want to pay me no mind. I'm just crazy. I'm just a crazy old lady. This crazy old lady got Negro on her birth certificate. So if I had to if I had to bet my life on it, Negro, those persons with the paperwork, Negro, are in the best position out of all you brown and dark brown skinned persons who identify as Black American and African American. I would certainly rather identify as a Negro than a black racial group of Africa any day. Because I know we both, all of us know that a baby cannot be born to a black racial group. That's not humanly possible. There's no way on earth for a baby to be born into the world belonging to a black racial group. That's not possible. Biology don't work that way. Simply, biology don't work that way. So America is in the process of robbing the Negroes, those who have the paperwork, because a lot of you folks don't have the paperwork. I don't know what your ethnicity is, what your bloodline is, but a lot of you are the fake freedmen. A lot of you folks are just perpetrating a fraud under the term black, but it's all getting exposed. It's finally getting exposed because you folks been hiding up under the label black. America made it possible. It's some You can blame America, but you can also blame yourself because you have a brain and you know how to self-correct. You didn't have to accept it. I can remember going back in my memory of all the times that I checked the box that said Black American and African American. I never felt it on the inside. Every time I would fill out a form or submit an application and I had to go down those pages, and when it came time to check that box for black slash African American, it it left a uneasy feeling on my inside. I never felt it. I never made a connection, and I never could make sense of it when I was feeling it. I can go back in my memory and remember I could never make sense of it. I just felt it. At the time that I was feeling it, I didn't understand why I was feeling it until all of this came about with the delineation and reparations when I discovered in 2020 that a reparations movement had started. I didn't know anything about that. All those times that when I had to fill out those applications and forms, I never felt a connection to the word Black American and African American. And I would pause and wonder why I felt that way. Now I understand why I felt that way. Because no matter how many times I looked at my birth certificate, my eyes had never locked on Negro until I happened to be in a Twitter space on Twitter one night, and the farmer Ari Twitter space for the Negroes, and I reached over and pulled out my birth certificate. And no matter how many times I have looked at that birth certificate, my eyes had never locked on the term Negro. I remember the day I left home. My mother told me to protect my birth certificate like with my life. And I did. I did exactly what my mother told me because I was leaving for the military and she knew I needed to protect that birth certificate. And I remember her telling me that when we had our last talk. She said, "This birth certificate, you make sure you be very, very careful not to lose it and protect it." And I did exactly that. And I can't count the number of times I had to pull it out and show it for one thing or another. And I looked at it each time that I pulled it out. Each time I had to do something and it required my birth certificate, I pulled it out. I I protected that birth certificate like gold. I mean, I felt it was like gold. I really protected that birth certificate. I don't think I have, besides my daughter and my own life, I can't think of anything else I protected like I did that birth certificate. I just did. I got in the habit of doing. I didn't even think about it. It was just like a built-in habit. And before I knew it, the years had ticked by. Now, when I look back on that, I understand why it was so important to protect that birth certificate. My birth certificate is falling apart. It's so old. It's on that old paper. I mean, it is falling apart. But I'm gonna tape it back together. I'm gonna tape it back together. I'm gonna tape it back together. As sure as what my name is. But that birth certificate is falling apart. It's so old. But you can still read every bit of print on it. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. I have got to protect that birth certificate with my life. But it's falling apart and it's on some old paper. But like I started to say, you folks made a decision to abandon the term Negro. So if I had to bet my life on it, if I really had to make a bet, Negro, those that have the paperwork that say Negro, we are in the best position. That's just how life rolls. That's just how life unfolds sometimes. My heart goes out to those persons who got reclassified to Black American. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. But each one of you have a brain. You had, once you did the research and got a better understanding, you had the right to self correct. You didn't have to continue to identify that way. You didn't have to call into the OMB and tell them that you abandoned Negro for Black American. You didn't have to tell them that. You didn't have to submit your statement for 75 days and tell the OMB you prefer to identify as Black American. You didn't have to do that. You could have stood on Negro, what your ancestors carved out. They carved it out because they did not want their descendants to start at ground zero. Well, we're at ground zero. All of us are at ground zero. We are at ground zero, but the ancestors, they didn't want their descendants to have to start at ground zero. That's why I believe with all my heart why those ancestors, when they came out of slavery, they could have abandoned Negro. They could have changed it. They could have went by color. They could have went by black. They could have went by African American. They could have continued to go by mulatto. They could have went by anything but Negro, and they could have abandoned it. They had every right to abandon Negro because they went through it. Not one of us went through it. If anyone had the right to abandon Negro, it was those Negro ancestors who made it through slavery, and they chose not to abandon it. My common sense tells me the reason why they chose not to abandon the term Negro because they understood what had went into it, what sacrifice had went into it, and no one was gonna convince them to abandon the term Negro. They understood that Negro tied them to the land. It tied them to the land because they blood, sweat, and tears and bones were buried in the land. So they didn't tell Lincoln and Sherman not to put Negro in that Special Field Order 15. Because they could have told Lincoln and Sherman, we want you to put black in this Special Field Order 15. We do not want you to put Negro nowhere in that contract. They could have done that. They could have told Lincoln and Sherman, we prefer you to put African American in this document, this contract, Special Field Order 15. They didn't do that. They could have told President Lincoln and General Sherman, we prefer you put freemen in this Special Field Order 15. They didn't do that. They could have told President Lincoln and General Sherman, we prefer you put color. They didn't do it because they clearly made the evaluation that what 246 years had went into the term Negro, they were not going to abandon their position because they were never going to have a stronger position than that. If they ever were going to have their human rights and a respect and a protection and a access to the land and what was owed to them, they were not going to abandon Negro. Because if they did, they would lose all of that. They would simply lose all of that. So they chose not to abandon the term Negro. And America clearly knows that Negro ties the Negro ancestors and their descendants to the land because their bones are buried in the sand. They did Most of them did not come here on their own free will. They were kidnapped and brought to this landmass. They were forced, many of them, and those that were already here. I don't know too much about that. I really don't. That's why my focus have been on the Negro ancestors' recorded history of Negro slavery. I am not going to argue with anyone who wants to try to determine who got here first. I don't know who got here first. I ain't seen no documentation until someone can show me undisputed, verified proof of who got here first. I'm just going to say it's a tie. Did the Negroes get here before the Native Americans or the American Indians? I don't really know. Only God know. Only God know, and I'm not God, but I do know my ancestors slaved for 246 years. It was documented and recorded. And that I do know. That I do know. So that's what I'm going to stand on. Because I'm not going to abandon what my ancestors carved out and sacrificed and achieved for 246 years. I'm not going to do that unless I'm brain dead. Unless I'm brain dead, and I don't think I'm brain dead just yet. No, no, the Negroes, they were brought here by force. They were brought to this landmass by force, and they sacrificed and built the wealth and the infrastructure. And I'm sure a lot of other folks helped out too. But the Negro ancestors, they never got paid one red penny for 246 years. They never got paid one red penny for 246 years. So the Negroes and the American Indians are going to have to work it out some kind of way. I don't know how that's going to get worked out, but the Negro ancestors are entitled to Special Field Order 15. That has to be separate for what is owed to the American Indians and Native Americans. That has to be separate. It simply has to be separate because if anyone have claim to this landmass, it's the American Indians and the Negroes. Those are the two bloodlines that have any claim to this landmass. Because America first genocide the American Indian and the Native American. They done that. They almost wiped them off the face of the earth. They almost successfully wiped that bloodline completely off the face of the earth. The same way these demons did when they invaded the continent of Africa. They completely wiped off bloodlines off of that landmass when they invaded. Completely wiped them off the face of the earth. There's no trace of them. They are completely wiped off the face of the earth. They almost done that with the Native Americans, American Indians. Then they proceeded to do that same evil against the Negroes. They started a genocide of the Negro when they made a human being a slave. The genocide started. So, folks, if we're going to get down to the nitty gritty, and I believe in getting down to the nitty gritty, the Negroes who got Negro on their paperwork, if I had to bet on it, I would say those are the persons who are in the best position. I think if the rest of you folks are being fair and evaluating critically, I guess you come to that same conclusion, but you may not. That's your personal choice. That's your personal choice whether you want to evaluate it fairly. But that's what my common sense tells me. That's what America is threatened by. They got 246 years of hangings and lynchings and burnings of a genocide. And then, after claiming that Negro slavery was free, was legal, they messed up when that contract of Special Field Order 15 was signed into law. I don't care if it was signed into law for 1 minute or 1 hour, it was signed into law. A binding contract. A binding contract, the same way they made contracts today, same way they made contracts with the Native Americans and American Indians, same way they don't make contracts with everyone else around the world. That's a binding contract because the Negro ancestors sacrificed for that contract with their life. You don't get a more binding contract than that. So that contract was binding in the Negroes who fought in the Civil War. They they sacrificed their life and they were rewarded Special Field Order 15. America clearly knows that. And then there's other information coming out that something that happened in 1864. I still have to do some research on that, so I can't talk about it. But there's clear proof. There's clear proof that America broke that contract of 1865. They broke that contract, and so if they refuse to re-implement Special Field Order 15, then they have to fork up the land grants. That's all they got to do. Sit down and fork up the executive orders for land grants in that equal amount plus cash. Some amount of cash between $1 and $10 million. I think it's reasonable. I think just let's be reasonable so we can go on and get separated from these demons. I'm a sensible person. I'm not like these folks who are running around here feeding folks with these pipe dreams of trillions of dollars and trillions of dollars. Ain't gonna never see it. I believe in being reasonable and common sense. America needs to fork up the land and somewhere between a dollar amount between no 1 million is not enough. Somewhere between starting at 2 million and work your way up to 10 million. I think that's pretty fair. I think that's pretty fair and let us part ways. Let's separate and get it over and done with. Let's just part ways and be done with it because the pretense of integration has lasted long enough. We can we can go around the country and see all the separation that's still in place. So we ain't got to pretend it anymore. We don't have to pretend it. We got folks in gated communities. We got folks in private schools. We got folks that you go to places to you go to jobs and all you see is one skin color and you may see a speck of one brown skinned person and so we can stop pretending. Let's just make it official. Let's just go back and make it official because the pretense has lasted long enough. Don't you think? Don't all of us adults know that the pretense of integration has lasted long enough? We can just make it official separation because it's pretty much what we have witnessed since that so called integration took place. It should have never happened because the Negro ancestors, they never wanted to be integrated. They said it. They told Lincoln and Sherman they never wanted to be integrated, intermixed with these demons. It's in the transcript. You ain't got to take my word for it. Go read the transcript. They stated it in plain language. They never wanted to be integrated with these demons. Well, we don't went through the test mode since 19 whenever integrated happened. I don't even pay attention to the date. I need to go get that date stamped in my head. But whenever that date started, we can face the reality that it's all been a pretense. And let's just be adults about it and end it because it's all a pretense. And so we don't need to keep up that pretense any longer because it's embarrassing and it's unbecoming of an adult to keep on pretending that we are integrated when all you got to do is drive around and see all the gated communities, all the private schools, all the examples of brown and dark brown skinned persons are not even present. Every once in a while, You may see us one or two here and there, one or two here and there. Now that Donald Trump is going to take care of that, he's going to make sure he has stated that folks are going to get hired based on their ability, but really, folks are going to get hired based on their skin color. But we'll pretend like it's going to be based on ability. We'll pretend that, but we know the truth, and I think it may just end up being a good thing, really, because the Negro ancestors, they were doing quite fine when they were separated. They had built their whole community. Everything they needed had they had built it. So it just may folks are crying right now, but I think it's a good thing. Now maybe the Negroes will focus their energy and time on rebuilding their own infrastructure. They have the ability to do it, but they've been so dependent on these evil government, and that's the only reason why America integrated, because they wanted to keep control over the Negro existence. That's the only reason why they did it. Out of greed, and they wanted control. They knew if the Negroes stayed separate, they would exceed and pass them beyond imagination. They would have been left in the dust like what's that runner by the name of Owens in the Olympics? That's how bad America would have been left in the dust if the Negroes would have been left alone. They wouldn't have been nowhere in sight because the Negroes were doing quite fine. They were educating themselves. They were creating their own jobs. They had built their own hospitals, their own schools. They had done put everything in place that they needed from day to day to live, and they were living quite fine. They had to live up under terror and threat of being hung and lynched and burnt every day, but they had built it. They still got it built. In spite of all that terror and threat of being murdered and hung and lynched every day, they still built it brick by brick, lumber by lumber. They got it built. So that's what's going to have to happen because as long as the Negroes and brown and dark brown skinned persons are voting for the Republicans and the Democrats and the Independents, then you are going to continue to vote for your demise. Because that's what's the only reason why America gave Negroes the right to vote. They wanted control, control. They wanted to feel that same control they had when Negro slavery was going on for 246 years. They said, "How can we get back that control?" Well, we're gonna tell these Negroes they're gonna get the right to vote. We're gonna tell these Negroes they're gonna get integrated, and we're gonna have the control and the power and the money over their life existence. And that's exactly what took place. That's exactly what happened. And these demons, they have benefited far too long. They have benefited far too long, and the end is coming to an end. God has already stated that if Negroes don't take their rightful place, that the world will come to an end. And it's looking like we're getting kind of near to that. I don't know. I don't pretend to be God, But based on what I read in the Bible, God said you're going to start seeing certain signs. And once you start seeing one, two, three, four different signs, then you know that the end is near. Yep, that's what was. And I can't lie to myself and tell myself I don't see those signs. One, two, three, four. I do see it. I'm not gonna lie to myself because I do see it. So that's why America passed a law to give Negroes the right to vote, simply because they wanted to keep control and have power over those human beings' day to day life. And now it's all being revealed. It's all being revealed. Yes, it was it was a harm to be intermixed with the enemy. And we can be honest about that. We can be honest about that and not pass that same harm down to our children and grandkids. We can be honest about that. We can start laying the groundwork for the next generation not to have to live up under that harm for 60 years. We don't have to pass that down to them. America is going to have to let the Negroes go. It's time to let God's people go. If America don't decide to do that, then America is simply going to crumble to the ground. But it don't have to come to that. America simply has to let God's people go. Give them the land that they are owed. Give them the land and the money that's owed and part ways. That's simple as that. It's time for the Negroes and brown and dark brown skinned persons to get out of the way of these demons. It's time to get out of the way and let them fight it out. The Negroes and brown and dark brown skinned persons have done our part for humanity. We have done our part for over 400 years to contribute to humanity in decency and honesty. We have done our part and we have suffered and we have endured genocide. We have endured suffering and it's time to part ways. It's time for the Jamaicans and the Haitians and the Bahamas and the African people to be let alone. Just leave them alone. That's the way God wanted it. So it's time for America and all these nations that has caused destruction around the world to let God's people go. If you don't do that, it looks like we're headed to the end. I just it just the signs are there. I don't want to try to step into God's uh shoes and pretend to be God, but I believe it with all my soul that if America don't let God's people go, the world is coming to an end. I really believe that. I believe it with every bit of my fiber of my body and spirit, and the suffering can come to an end. America and the president and the Congress and the Senate simply have to let God's people go and sit down and sign those executive orders for those land grants and those cash payments and let God's people go. America has made and benefited a wealth for over 400 years. They have built wealth and benefited for over 400 years off the backs of brown and dark brown skinned human beings. For over 400 years is long enough. So, my best suggestion to America and the president and the vice president and the Congress and the Senate is to let God's people go and sign those land grants and that cash payment and let us part ways. I think we can clearly figure out how to coexist amongst each other. That's the way it was supposed to be from the beginning. We were never supposed to mix bloodlines. We were never supposed to mix bloodlines, but we were supposed to figure out how to coexist amongst each other. But God read in the Bible that we were never supposed to mix bloodlines. But the evil folks decided to use it as a weapon. They said if I mix my blood with their blood, I have a 50-50 chance that that person that's born is either going to side with their own bloodline or they're going to come over to my side and side with me. And that's what they did from the moment they invaded Africa. They mixed the bloodlines. And they still doing it today. They running around here so worried about dying off and mixing the bloodline to extend their own life. They really, really think they can circumvent God. They That's very, very delusional. That's quite delusion. Joe Biden had the nerve to say we are going to have a multicultural society, a multicultural society, multicultural society where all folks are mixed together. All folks are mixing their bloodline. Just downright, it's downright evil, downright evil. But I'm thankful that my blood is not mixed a whole lot with these demons. I got lucky. Who did you boycott? Who did you boycott? Got real lucky. My two DNA tests show somewhere between 89 to 92% originating from the continent. I don't know how in God's name that was a blessing from God. I got about 6 to 7% Scottish or Ireland, some of them other words, and I got 1% indigenous. I I got really lucky because my blood is not broken up in 20% here, 25% there, 30% there. No, I got darn lucky because my mother did not take wings and fly from Africa. So my blood is how did my blood originate from Africa when I know good and darn well my mother never took wings and flew from Africa. Now my mother went to Africa, her and my sister. My sister took my sister older than me, a year and a half older than me. I remember her and my mother going to Africa for a visit. And now that I think about it, I remember when I was growing up, my mother telling me her best friend had moved to Africa. And that's when I really started, you know, thinking about the word Africa was it was connected to my mother best friend. They were lifelong friends. I don't know if she ever came back, but she definitely went. She sent back pictures and stuff, and she went over there and started living her life in Africa. And then Just thought about it. I remember my sister and my mother going. I think my other sister went too. I haven't went so far. Maybe someday. Maybe someday I'll get a chance to go. But right now, I am quite clear that my DNA originates from the continent of Africa. But that doesn't replace my birthright in America. I cannot trace my bloodline directly back to a Pacific bloodline in Africa. So it's good to know, but it would be more good to know if I could trace it back to a Pacific bloodline. Right now, it's 92%, and it's divided to all those different tribe names in Africa. I can I can name off some of them. Mali, something called Mila, I believe. I keep seeing a word called Benin, and I remember those two because they are the highest percent. I think that first one is 20%, and the next one is 18%, and then it starts going down to 16 or 14%, and it just keep reducing. That's why those stuck out in my head. They stuck in my head. But um, my fight is for the Negro ancestor history on America's landmass. That's where my family member bones are buried, and I'm not leaving America unless I'm gonna be leaving in a casket. They're gonna have to be, you know, taking my body out of America in a casket. That's the only way they're gonna get me out of here. Cause I'm not leaving my mother bones. I'm not leaving my brother's bones buried in America, and I go off someplace else. That's not gonna happen. Not long as I'm breathing. I'm gonna be able to wake up and visit my mother's grave anytime I feel like it. And so I'm not leaving her bones. That's just not going to happen. That's delusional. That's very delusional. I don't know how folks. I don't know how other folks decide to do it, but that's their personal choice. Now, some folks are going to want to relocate to Africa, and I wish them well, and I wish Africa well. But I have already evaluated. I'm not leaving my mother's bones, my two brothers. May they rest in peace. I'm not leaving my grandfather. I'm not leaving my grandmother, my aunts, my uncle. I'm not leaving their bones in America and relocate to Africa. That's just not going to happen. But it is good to know that my blood originates from the continent of Africa. And maybe someday I'll get more information. But as it stands right now, the number one priority is fighting for the Negro ancestors, protecting and preserving what they carved out for 246 years. They carved it out with blood, sweat, and tears and bones. Ain't nothing on this earth besides my daughter that's worth fighting and dying for than that. It's nothing that I can think of that's more important and worth fighting and dying for than that. Except for my daughter and my family members. But that's just where we at. And so you folks are waking up today, and the folks are in the Twitter hallway with their Twitter spaces open, and they are still running around calling themselves Black American and African American and Freeman and ADOS and FBA. When, as I stated last night on my broadcast, so if you want to go back and listen to the broadcast from yesterday, I'm not going to talk a lot about it right now. If you have brown or dark brown skin, you don't have a birthright at this very second. America don't recognize your birthright. America don't recognize you having a birthright. If you are walking around with brown and dark brown skin and you are calling yourself Black American and African American, you do not have a birthright, a identity, or a ethnicity. Because the definition on the OMB states that a person identifying as Black American and African American, they belong to a black racial group of Africa, and no human being can be born to a black racial group. That's not humanly possible. Each baby that's born into the world, the father and the mother that conceived that baby is birthed into a Pacific bloodline. Pacific bloodline. They both had a bloodline before they conceived that baby. Before God birthed that baby into the world and that baby took their first breath, they were birthed into a bloodline. It may be one bloodline, two bloodlines, three, four, or five, but it was specific. And it wasn't spelled black. And it wasn't spelled white. And that's just the fact of the matter. Ain't nothing going to change that. Ain't nothing going to change that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. Nothing's going to change that. But it's just low down that America, it's low down that America could not respect those persons and human beings to recognize their birthright. So America has reached the final straw. First, they stole and genocide and murdered Negroes for 246 years. And then they forced them to do free labor for 246 years while they were murdering and hanging and lynching and burning them. Now, then America spent the next 150 years continuing to murder and genocide and lock those persons' bloodline and their existence for the next 150 years. So now America is trying to nail the final nail in the coffin. That's what they're in the process of doing. They're trying to hammer the final nail in the coffin. They're going to rob each one of those human beings of their birthright. Every human being is entitled to a birthright. That's a gift from God. That's a entitlement of each human being to have a recognized birthright, a recognized identity, a recognized ethnicity. That's each human being's birthright. But America decided they wanted to rob each of those human beings of their birthright. And now they are going to receive judgment for that because America done this on purpose. They didn't do it by accident because America recognizes every immigrant on that census report. They recognize the Germans, the Italians, the Irish, the Native American, the Asian, the Latinos, the Mexican. the Hawaiians, the Jamaicans, the Haitians, the Ethiopians, the Nigerians, the Somalians. But the only ones who are not recognized are those persons who identify as Black American and African American. Do you think that was by accident? Do anyone think that was by accident? I just want to know. I just simply want to know. Do you think it was by accident or was it done on purpose? My common sense tells me it was done on purpose. That's what my common sense tells me. Because if it wasn't done on purpose, then Barack Obama would not be able to identify as Black American and African American. If it wasn't done on purpose, Barack Obama could not identify the same way of a Black American and African American, because that's their birthright. Same, same two persons can't have the same birthright unless it's biology, unless they connected by biology. I think that's how biology works. Uh, and America knew that. America knew that every time they allowed Kamala Harris, somebody from Canada with brown or dark brown skin, to identify the same way as a person who are claim Black American and African American when they reclassified folks back in 1966. From the time they changed over from Negro to Black American in 1966, then America knew they should not have been allowing persons, other persons with brown and dark brown skin, to claim that same identity. They knew that, but they done it on purpose. They done it on purpose. Now, the Negro ancestors, they carved out 246 years on this landmass. So why is America trying to put Black Americans and African Americans back on the continent of Africa after everything that their ancestors sacrificed and carved out on this landmass? America don't want to recognize those human beings on this landmass where they 2 feet are planted. How is that fair? It's not fair. It's disrespect and it's evil. It's disrespect and it's evil. Because most of us have never put 2 feet on Africa. Once human beings were kidnapped and forced to come to America, and some were already here, they never made it back to Africa. Their descendants never made it to Africa. So why would the OMB in America and the Congress and the Senate put a definition on the OMB disrespecting each one of those persons' birthright? I'm just going to put a general definition and tell you you have to identify that way. I'm going to give you a general definition, but I'm going to show respect to every other human being and recognize their ethnicity. I'm going to recognize their national origin. I'm going to recognize their nation. Black Americans and African Americans do not have a recognized national origin. Black American and African Americans don't have a nation. They don't have a recognized ethnicity, a recognized identity, a recognized birthright, because America chose to steal it. And you folks, you ungrateful human beings, chose to abandon Negro. And that was the only term that gave any of us any position in America's landmass. That was the only one. And it's going to only be the only one as long as this world is in existence. Nothing's ever going to replace that. I know it's going to break your heart to hear that. I know it's going to break your heart to hear that, but that's the fact of the matter. That's why the ancestors chose not to abandon it. They clearly understood that Negro tied them to the land. It tied them to the land and gave them a slim position in America. As long as they stood on Negro, they had a slim bit of protection. They had a strong position to fight from. They knew as long as they stood on Negro, America would have a fight on their hands. How do you fight Negroes who slaved for 246 years and tell your brain that you have more rights than they do? That don't make common sense. That's why America has to rewrite that 246-year history. They have to rewrite it. The books have to be changed. Google search engine has to be changed. Chat GPT have to be changed. And Barack Obama and Grace Mean went out their way to remove Negro from the census report. And then the OMB removed Negro on the 28th of March, 2024. The OMB removed Negro on the 28th of March, 2024, because these ungrateful human beings on Twitter abandoned it. They told the OMB they were okay. Now they're trying to backstep and attach and tether to the term Negro. But God has already recorded what they did in 2023 when all of us had a chance to call into the OMB for 3 days. All of us on Twitter, because we talked to each other for months before that the OMB opened up the website for 75 days. We talked to each other back and forth. So nobody should have been confused that that was our opportunity to shove it down America's throat, that you will acknowledge the contribution and sacrifice and achievement that Negro ancestors made for 246 years. But these ungrateful human beings, they didn't care about that. They got their 2 minutes to speak and they told the OMB, I prefer to identify as Black American. I am okay if you decide to remove Negro. OMB, I am okay if no, OMB, I prefer to identify as African American. OMB, I want you to know that I am okay if you decide to remove Negro. OMB, I prefer to identify as Freeman. I am okay if you decide to remove Negro. OMB, I prefer to identify as ADOS. I am okay if you decide to remove Negro. Yvette Cornell made a video the day after the call in, and she was quite upset that ten Negroes called in and told the OMB they had no right to remove Negro. She had to make a video about it. She was so upset about it. OMB, I prefer to identify as FBA. I am okay if you decide to remove Negro. Well, the OMB decided to remove Negro on the 28th of March, 2024. So the OMB decided, made their decision, and they removed Negro on the 28th of March, 2024. So all of these brain dead human beings who called in and submitted their statement for 75 days, they allowed the OMB to wash 246 years of Negro slavery down the drain. I think they forgot about that part. I think they forgot about that. On the 28th of March, 246 years of hangings got washed down the drain. 246 years of lynchings got washed down the drain. 246 years of a human being being burnt alive got washed down the drain on the 28th of March, 2024. 246 years of murder got washed down the drain on the 28th of March, 2024. All of those wars that the Negroes fought in, it got washed down the drain on the 28th of March, 2024. All of those precious patents and inventions that was recorded under Negro got washed down the drain. See how that works? It got washed down the drain because you human beings were ungrateful. It meant more, it was more important to tell the OMB you preferred all of those other terms when it was your opportunity and my opportunity to shove it down America's throat once and for all. We finally had an opportunity to demand that the ancestors got honored and acknowledged for the sacrifice they made. And you folks chose to pass it up. You folks chose to abandon it. And now you got some nerve, you got some gall to get on a public app and cry, and open rooms and say, it don't matter when I'm called. Any brain dead human being that will get on a public app and tell the world it don't matter what they are called, they are a walking corpse, a dead human being. There's nothing more important than your birthright. And your enemy don't even have to have a gun to your head for you to get on a public app and tell the world, I don't care what they call me. They can call me green, orange, purple, or whatever. What human being does that? What human being tell the whole world it don't matter what they are called? I never thought I'd live to hear another human being say that. I never thought I would ever hear a human being get on a public app, come off the microphone, and tell the whole world it don't matter what I am called. Can you process that? Can anyone process that? Your enemy know you are already defeated. If you don't even care to be acknowledged as a human being that you exist, you don't even have the backbone to fight for your birthright. That's it. That's it. When you don't even can't even summon the backbone to fight for your birthright, you are already defeated. You are a walking corpse. I've been listening to you folks anonymous in the anonymous section, and that one blew me away. It downright blew me away that I heard one adult after another adult say out of their own mouth, and no one had a gun to their head, and they told the world, it don't matter. It does not matter what I'm called. Do you think it's fair to that baby that's going to be born one day that you as a individual adult don't have the backbone to fight for your birthright? Do you think it's going to be fair to that baby that's going to be born one day that they are not entitled to a birthright? Do you think that's going to be fair? Do anyone have an answer for me? Do you think that's going to be fair? Everyone else gets to walk around entitled to a birthright and a recognized birthright, but for some odd reason, you folks want to volunteer not to be respected and demand your birthright. Why is that? Well, I think it's a mental damage. It's a weak backbone because you folks don't can't find a backbone to fight for anything. It's just a weak backbone. America been doing as they please for over 400 years, and this is the final straw. This is the final battle. Your birthright, and you have already thrown in the towel. Now you finally at that crossroad where America wants to rob the final thing from you, and that's your birthright, your existence, with every breath that you take. And you just gonna turn it over and not put up any kind of fight. But you folks have already lost the battle because you turned your back on Negro. And Negro, that's the only term that's going to give you any chance of a fight in America. America is never going to recognize all of these other classifications at the same level and weight and precedence of Negro. Y'all didn't want to hear that. Y'all didn't want to hear it, but it saved your life. But I can tell you, my common sense tells me that 246 years went into Negro. 246 years did not go into Black American. Black American came about in 1966. So if I'm thinking with a clear head, I'm going to fight and die for Negro. Even if you think the white man gave you the term Negro, the white man gave you the term Negro, I'm still going to fight for it. And I'm going to die for it because my ancestors put 246 years into it. They put 246 years into it. But you folks care more about nigger than you do about Negro. Y'all really showing yourself. You sound just like the slave master every time you say that word. You ain't gonna never be able to change that. But you think you have made it all your own. You fight for nigger, but you don't want to fight for Negro. Folks, human beings never know what's going to expose what their character is made of. You never know. If you live long enough, it's bound to happen at some point. You never know what's going to really expose what you're made of and what your character is made of. How can you walk around and be proud of the word nigger and then reject the term Negro? How do you make that make sense? You folks wake up day after day just to say the word nigger. Nigger, nigger, nigger. Nigger, nigger, nigger. Nigger, nigger, nigger. Nigger is not going to get you the Negro ancestors justice claim across the finish line. It's not going to do it. But nigger do belong to the slave master. Now, no one can argue about that. So I cannot think of any reason why I would want to say the word nigger out of my mouth to someone else. Why would I want to call anyone nigger? I ain't never called one person on this earth a nigger. I ain't never done it. I ain't never thought about doing it. I ain't never done it. I ain't never thought about doing it because I learned when I was growing up that the slave master used that word against my ancestor. I learned that when I was growing up. So no one had to tell me not to ever want to say that word. No one had to ever tell me that. And no one never ever told me that. I told myself. That's what I did. From the education that I got from my mother and growing up, I came to that understanding all on my own. That that word called nigger was constantly used by the slave master. So if I know that, what reason on earth would I have to use it? Can anyone explain that to me? What reason would I have to use that word if the slave master used it to harm my ancestor? And more than likely, the last word before they died, before they got hung and lynched and burnt, was that slave master saying nigger. So why would I continue to use it in the 21st century? Why would I want to do that? But you folks run around on Twitter, you are very proud of it. And so, from the looks of it, you're going to pass it down to your children and grandkids. And someday, they're going to walk out into the world and the wrong person going to say it. And they may just threaten to cause harm to their life when they respond to that person, that wrong person that should not have said it. But you would have done your part to pass that harm down to your own children and grandkids because they had to be around you and constantly heard you using the word nigger, but you really have tried to convince yourself that you can make the word nigger all your own. The only way you can do that is if you have control of the whole world. I don't think any of us have control of the whole world. That's the only way that I can possibly think that you could convince yourself that you made nigger all your own. I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's possible. And every time I hear an adult say the word nigger, I have a trauma flashback to those times. I never was back there, but every time I hear someone say the word nigger, I think I'm hearing the slave master talking to my ancestor, mistreating my ancestor, murdering my ancestor. That's the only thing that flashes through my brain. And I just be like, let me get through it. Let me get through it some kind of way. But that's why you folks, God is going to make sure that you get your just due. You cared more about that word nigger than you did negro. But you think you deserve reparations based on those negroes. You've been running around since 1989 claiming that you deserve reparations based on the harm that was done to those negroes for 246 years. But then you are offended and think negro is outdated and offensive. But at the same breath, you think you deserve reparations. Do you really think God is going to reward that? Do y'all really think that when you wake up day after day? Do you really think that God will reward folks for showing that level of ungratefulness and dishonor and disrespect of each one of those persons who had to live and die through that 246 years. Do you really think that God would reward that? I don't know how you lie to yourself to that level. I don't quite understand how you can possibly lie to yourself. But I can tell you right now, you're not going to ever see one red penny of reparation. Now, I do trust in God to deliver Special Field Order 15 or land and cash to be included, or America going to come to an end. Now, I trust in that. But this little fake word called reparations, God is not going to let you ever see one red penny. God is not going to let you ever see one red nickel. God is not going to let you see one red dime or one red quarter because you folks cared more about nigger than you did about Negro. See what happens when you be ungrateful? God is going to make sure that you get your just due. God is going to make sure that each one of us get our just due when we be ungrateful. And you folks have been ungrateful. And now, in closing, Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the OMB are going to decide whether or not each one of you with brown and dark brown skin are going to have an identity as Black American or African American. Because Black American and African American is a made up classification. That's what it is. Ain't nothing gonna ever change that. Ain't nothing on this earth is gonna ever change that. God decided each one of our bloodlines before we came into the world. That's why, if you really respected and honored those Negroes who slaved on those slave plantations for 246 years, you should have known to stand on that. That gave you your protection. That gave you the ability to run around and stick your chest out and brag about the wealth and the infrastructure that was built off of their back for 246 years. You remember all those times that you ran around and bragged about that? All you good folks who ran around and bragged about all of that wealth that was built off the backs of Negroes for 246 years. Well, now all of that is hanging in the balance. It's in Donald Trump's hands. It's in Elon Musk's hands. It's in the OMB hands. It's all hanging in the balance. They could Donald Trump could come out tomorrow and drop that bombshell. He could do that as fast as he's signing executive orders. He could do it at any second or any minute. He could go before the microphone and make that final decision. It's coming. It's coming. It's certainly coming. But as it stands right now, if you are walking around with brown or dark brown skin, you do not have a birthright. If you are walking around with brown or dark brown skin, you do not have an identity. If you are walking around with brown and dark brown skin, you don't have a recognized ethnicity, a recognized identity, a recognized birthright. But I think those folks that have that paperwork that say Negro, I think we are in the best position. Yes, we are. It may still turn out that America decides to rewrite that 246 years and insert the Germans and the Irish and the Asians and the Latino. But I rather take I would I would rather have my faith in the term under the term Negro than anything else on this landmass. I would rather live and die and stand on that before I stand on any of these reclassifications. I think I have a fighting chance. I think it's worth fighting and dying for. So it looks like those persons who have the paperwork that said Negro, they're in the best position because it came first. What's the confusion? 246 years of recorded history under Negro, and then another 100 years until they changed it in 1966. That's 350. That's 350 years. That's 350 years. That's 350 years. So that's what you get when you be ungrateful. I tried to tell you folks that for well over a year. On each one of my broadcasts, I talked about it, and you called me crazy. You called me crazy, and I kept on talking about it. I said, go read the definition on the OMB. Go read the definition on the OMB. It takes 5 minutes to read. And you individuals who are trying to replace Negro with the acronym Black American Negro Descendant, that will essentially erase 246 years also. If you choose to try to replace Negro with the acronym Black American Negro Freeman, once again, you are replacing the history that was recorded under Negro. And you don't want to do that because that's your evidence of the crime. That's your evidence of the crime. That's the centerpiece of your evidence of the crime that you are basing your justice claim on. You don't want to replace that evidence. I don't think you want to do that. But some of you brain dead human beings are trying to do exactly that. I don't know whether you are a plant, whether you are a psyop, but it's not adding up. You folks are too intelligent and too common sense to be making that kind of mistake. That's 101 entry level law degree. You don't even have to go walk through the classroom to know that. You don't even have to register for entry level law degree to know that. You don't change one word. You don't change one word of the evidence, let alone one letter. And you folks want to change the whole description. You want to change the whole how it's defined. You have came up with your own description. It's American descendants of slaves. No, it's descendants of slaves. No, it's descendants of chattel slavery. America never recorded Negro slavery that way. No, America recorded slavery with two words: Negro slavery. This Negro is going to be put up for sale today. This Negro is going to be hung today. This Negro is going to be burnt today. This Negro is going to be lynched today. This Negro is up for sale today. That's your evidence. That's the centerpiece of your evidence. If you want to weaken your legal case, then you replace that term with something else. And your legal case, you will officially remove the centerpiece of your legal case, the term Negro. That's the centerpiece of your evidence. That's the centerpiece of the crime. That's the centerpiece of the evidence that's the centerpiece of the crime that was committed for 246 years. See how that works? It's quite simple. You don't even have to go to law school to understand that. You don't even have to go to law school to understand that. It's quite simple. So now it's left up to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and OMB. Or you folks can, if you find a backbone, you can boycott and demand that America come to the table and meet your demands. And that can be one of your demands that you get to identify how you choose to do so. And it wouldn't just be left up to them to decide. You can start boycotting tomorrow and force America to come to the table and meet 5 to 10 demands if you can find a backbone to do it. I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I just don't think you can. I don't think you have it in you. I don't think most of you have it in you because I've been preaching boycott for 3 years and it's fell on deaf ears. So y'all have shown me for 3 years that you don't have the backbone to boycott. But I think, like I said on my other broadcast, I think a lot of you are refusing to boycott because you cannot stand my guts. You dislike me so badly, you don't want me to be right. That's why a lot of you are not doing it. That's why a lot of you are not supporting the boycott that I launched in February of 2022, in February of 2023, in February of 2024, because you despise my gut so bad and it just irks your soul that I could be right about this boycott that I've been preaching about. So you don't want me to be right. So I think some of you are doing it out of spite because you dislike my guts so bad. But you're not hurting me. You ain't got to support the boycott that I launched. You can launch your own. So you still don't have no excuse. But I know from being around most of you for 3 years that you cannot stand my guts. And I think that's the main reason when I sent you the direct link 3 or 4 times that you chose not to join. I sent it to you DM messages 3 or 4 times. And now I decided just a couple of days ago, I finally made the evaluation that a lot of you are not boycotting because you just cannot stand the fact that who did you boycott could be right. You don't want me to be right. So you are refusing to use your greatest power, all because you despise my gut. It's quite sad. It's quite pitiful, and it's quite sad because I know that's the reason. You don't have to tell me. I already know it. I have already figured it out. I have already evaluated it. I clearly know it. And there's no reason why you cannot activate your own boycott and you don't have to participate in the one that I personally launched. So then you still don't have an excuse. Just because you despise, just because some of you despise my guts is no reason why you cannot start your own boycott unless you just don't have the backbone to make the sacrifice. And I think that's what it is too. But you're going to wish you had very soon. You're going to wish to God that you had supported the boycott that I launched. You're going to wish that. That day is coming real soon. It's coming very, very soon. But I'm hoping and praying that you folks don't have to work so hard to avoid supporting the boycott that I personally have launched because I have already figured it out. I didn't feel that way at the beginning, but now as time has went on in the last week or so, I finally was just sitting down quietly to myself thinking, and it hit me. It came out of nowhere. I said I said, Alkaline, they are purposely out of spite not supporting the boycott that you have launched. And I didn't go looking to think that way. It just entered my thoughts. I said, after all this time, what is preventing these adults from joining the boycott that I personally launched 3 times? I launched it 3 times, and I just was having a pleasant little conversation with myself, and God put that understanding inside of me. It came out of nowhere. It just came out of nowhere, and I had to speak it out loud. I didn't look for it. I didn't go hunting for it. I didn't want to conjure up anything. I was just sitting down quietly to myself and gathering my thoughts. And God put that in my thinking. And then I said it out loud. I had to speak it out loud. I couldn't keep it to myself. There was no reason to keep it to myself. But I know one thing: you may lie to me, and you may lie to everyone else, but God and you know the truth. That what I just said out of my mouth is either my misunderstanding or it's the truth. It's and God know the truth, and you know the truth. So you may never tell me that, you may never tell anyone else that, but God know. And I think that's why God helped me to have that understanding and put that understanding inside of my brain. Because I'm going to repeat again. I did not go looking for it. I didn't. I did not think that way in 2022. I didn't think that way in 2023. I did not think that way in February of 2024. So that's it for me. Thank you, folks, for popping in. Thank you kindly. Hope and pray that you are safe and out of harm's way. Stay alert at all times. Look out for one another. Put as much safety and protection around you and your loved ones at all times. I trust that the Heavenly Father will make sure that each one of us live our days the way it's meant to be. Okie dokie, folks. Thank you again for popping in and taking time out your day. I'm going to turn back on the audio, the video, and let it play for the rest of the day. Uh, I hope and pray that folks will decide real soon to activate a boycott if they don't want to join the one that I personally have. If you do want to join the one that I launched, click on my profile and join the boycott. Even if you don't want to activate, add your number to the number count. Even if you don't want to participate, just adding your number to the number count can make a difference. And I hope that someday very soon that we will activate a boycott. That's the only option that we have because the oligarchy is not going anywhere. The only option that we have to counter the oligarchy is a boycott. And based on the video that I made, Twitter Grok has proven that Who Did You Boycott was right. I have been cleared of proof of how much of an impact of just boycotting Twitter, how much of a major impact it will have. That it's possibly that Twitter could never recover. And just imagine if that has a ripple effect to Facebook, Instagram, Clubhouse, YouTube, TikTok, how much negotiating power that would give all of us as a collective. And then maybe, just maybe, folks wouldn't have to be running around here crying about DEI. Maybe folks wouldn't have to be running around here crying about Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and folks getting laid off from their job. That could just be the one thing that's needed to shake things up. And I think that's what's needed. That's at the root of the problem. Money is at the root of the problem. So that's the way you're going to have to fight against it. And that is done by using a boycott. If you are fighting the oligarchy who have been in place since 1981, there's no other thing that you can use to fight that other than a boycott. But you folks don't want to do that, so oh well. All right, folks, take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you.